Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of, Sketchbook Tour. So here's another sketchbook that I was able to finish. And if you've been watching my channel, you'll know that I've been doing these 10-minute drawings. And these are the finished versions of them. So I put in like another 5 or 10 minutes to tighten them up. So you get to see a lot. And sometimes it'll vary on how much I have to do. That's why there's the 5 or 10 minutes. But I wanted to continue to show you guys, just in case you're not watching that, because these are my, come to find out, my newest sketchbooks. Now, I have started off with this thing called GI January. And it's just a prompt that I do, and I put together GI Joes, and, well, every day I draw them just like Inktober. And so yeah, so this year's GI Joes focused on the 90s GI Joes. I had a GI Joe trading card set, and I figured, oh, this would be great. So a lot of obscure GI Joes, some of the most I guess hardcore Joe fans, they'll recognize some, and some of them are really like Dusty. They're really recognizable. They're characters that have been throughout the cartoons and stuff like that. But a lot of characters will then not be, right? And I want to make sure that anyone who is looking knows that these are finished, right? It's not necessarily they're not sketches, right? These are finished, and even though the initial thing took me 10 minutes, and then maybe the finish took another 5, right? These are finished. They're not sketches. They're not scribbles. And I think that it's very, very important that new and upcoming artists realize that your work doesn't have to look like this in your sketchbooks, right? It just so happens that I knew I was going to be doing a whole lot of them, and I like the tone paper. And so I just kept everything in the sketchbook, and that's why I get to call it a sketchbook tour. But yeah, these are by no means sketches. These are finished products. So yeah, but some of them came out really nice. Like I really enjoy the way Wetsuit came out with just a little bit of white highlight. It was just, I had Wetsuit as a kid, but wasn't one of my favorites. But then there was a character called Sub-Zero, and I had no idea, right? And of course, if you follow my work or anything like that, you know that Mortal Kombat is a big influence on my art and the things that I do. And so when I saw one and it was like Sub-Zero, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta do that. And if I could find a Mortal Kombat sketch cover, that's who I'd put on it. Just to mess with people. Right? And some characters, like, I can't even remember who they were. And then you had weird people like Captain Gridiron. So many people, when I did this one, they're like, oh yeah, Captain Gridiron. And I was like, the man throws football grenades. Like, G.I. Joe had some crazy ideas. And if you really look at these, you'll start seeing like some of them are like super right. I'm like, oh, well, that fits. And other ones, their necks are too far, or their head's too big and stuff like that. And that's the thing, like because they are 10-minute drawings, they're not, for me, because you're under a time limit, you don't always get to sit there and fix the anatomy. And I think that's the big difference, especially if you're doing like convention sketches or something like that. It's not always perfect because you don't have the time to fix it. Like, you want to be able to give it back to the person, and so you just don't have the time to constantly fix it up. But some of them came out really cool. Like this could probably be a Mortal Kombat character too. I didn't understand this character at all, because why would you have your brain exposed? Seems like an easy target. And I was told when I was doing this for the GI January that there are too many hats and helmets. So I had a person who started and was like, I'm done. Too many hats and helmets. Then I started drawing bigger a little bit. Or trying to. And then I went back to being smaller, and then I went back to being bigger. But like I said, for those people who know G.I. Joe, you know, you see some and you're like, who the heck was that? And then, oh, Bazooka. Yeah. Tried to find some that would be fun and different than the normal. And then, of course, you know, we got to go to G.I. Joe, to Snake Eyes. Everyone loves Snake Eyes, except me. I like drawing Snake Eyes because he's cool, but the character itself, I'm like, this is my guy right here. Storm Shadows is definitely who I like, so I do love me some Storm Shadow. And then, so I keep going. It didn't get through the entire book. It's 50 pages, and then, you know, anywhere between 30 and 31 days, so then we obviously continue, and then I did Thundercats. And I'm probably still going to be doing Thundercats for a little bit, but... And I love the idea of Thundercats, and the fantasy aspect of them all, and stuff like that. And so, these were really fun to do. It seems like I keep doing them roughly every year. I'll do another Thundercat series or run. And sometimes... they just don't work, right? Like, I do not like this one at all. I did a disservice to Panthro here. I really want to redraw him because, wow, he did not come out the way I wanted him to. Neither did this. I mean, this was cool, but that, I still wish I would have made that one straight, but alas, right, like here. And I think that's another reason why this is kind of a sketchbook to me, because I didn't go back and fix it because I couldn't. I didn't have enough time. Then I really started drawing bigger because the use of the marker allows me to get in there and do quicker movements. So I even drew Mumra twice. Right, I really like this one. Like, I really, you know, there are times when you do something and you're just like, man, I really like that. And this is one of the ones. I used to have a Skeletor that was like that. And I was like, man, I really want this Skeletor. But, you know, so this one I think came out pretty cool. I thought Slythe was pretty good too. But clearly he's off the page, so I drew him too big. And Ultraman. I drew this one for my son. Like, he wanted, he was like, when are you gonna draw a werewolf? And so I was like, oh, Monkey-in will work. He's not a werewolf, but, you know, I mean, not Monkey-in, Jackalman, but he's close enough. And then, okay, so I left this one, right? This is not necessarily the way all of them will look by the end, you know, like at the end of the 10 minutes, but this is a good example. Like, there's no, you know, there's no fur color, body color, and the lines, right, they're pretty thin. They're not actually, the line weight doesn't come back in, and so, like, this one will probably take another 10 minutes because I didn't get very far at all. But I wanted to leave this one so that you guys can see it, because it's really like, this is, you know, this is kind of the way it would be like if I stopped and didn't finish them out. Maybe a little bit more color for most of them, but generally unfinished as far as like looking at it like this, right? And then of course I take these and I try and tighten them up as much as possible so that I can actually have, well, stuff for conventions. So when people are like, oh, do you have this? I'm like, yeah. And, you know, so it ranges. I'll start doing X-Men. I believe in May I'm going to be doing Spider-Man because there's a Spider-Man. So I'll probably be doing that. But yeah, so, you know, that's what it is. It's the majority of my sketchbooks now kind of look like that because I spend a lot of my time warming up and drawing with this. And I think that it is very important that you can do that, and, you know, that you can mess up. I know that you're like, oh, well, that doesn't look too bad. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't look too bad. But there are things here that if I was drawing and using a pen to ink instead of a Sharpie, right, I'd have more control over certain things and it would look a lot cleaner. But I think that having these kind of warm-ups so that you can actually draw and just draw and have a time limit is very important. And that's why these 10-minute drawings are super important. It has made my comic work so much faster. So I highly recommend, if you're not drawing in a sketchbook because you're like, oh, I don't know how to fill it up, give yourself 10 minutes a day. Anyone can find 10 minutes a day, and then just do a 10-minute drawing and then move on, right? And your sketchbook will fill, especially if you only do one, like even if you only do one a day, within like a month and a half, you'll have your sketchbook done. But if you're like, I have some time, and you do 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 of them a day, you'll fill this up really, really fast. So there you go. Thank you for joining me on this sketchbook tour. I hope you enjoyed what you were able to see, and I promise you I will have like sketchbook stuff here soon because I'm working on Ninja Empire, and so there is more sketchbook stuff coming, I promise. So yeah, thank you also very much for joining me, and I hope to see you at the next sketchbook tour. And yeah, thank you guys so very much, and I will see you at the next episode. See you later.